Hey everybody, Invisiblekatana here with my review for The Mandalorian Season 3, Episode 6, Guns for Hire. As you can see, I have the helmets again, we have the Darksaber again. If you watched my last review, this has been on the whole time, so I don't know if the Darksaber will actually stay on throughout this entire review, but we shall see. So, things have been different after this episode. Most people are not happy because of how things have been throughout the entire season, where people feel like we've been kind of middling and stuff like that. I personally find this to be my favorite season. It's definitely the in-between season for sure. 1 and 2 were definitely more compact and closer together as a story. This is kind of like that build-up season to go into the fourth season, or also probably into a couple other things as well, considering I know we're gonna start getting, we only got 2 more episodes, so we're getting our crossover stuff, we're getting Ahsoka, all those references, they got to be coming in the next 2 episodes. So I love this season, but I completely understand why most people probably don't. And I feel like a big part of it is, for one, there are people who are just like me that also do not like how this season is going, because you could even know all the stuff from Rebels and Clone Wars, and a lot of people do, and they still don't enjoy this season. But me personally, Mandalorians have always been my favorite thing in Star Wars, and I love this season because of that, because I'm like, all right, this whole season, like personally, I think, and I don't know if it's an anime thing or what the deal is, for some reason the issue of Moff Gideon there not being like a big bad, I think is totally irrelevant. Honestly, I don't think, like, you don't have to have a main villain, even though that kind of fits, it's Star Wars, it's good and bad, light and dark, all that. I feel like it makes a lot of sense not to have a villain for a season. Like, you have like your small villains, obviously the pirate guy from the last episode, little stuff like that. This episode in general, they have like a specific villainous task that they have, kind of have to deal with the malfunctioning droids and stuff. But I love this season. That's my personal opinion. Obviously, I would love to know your thoughts on just how you guys feel about everything and where we're headed. 2 more episodes to go, but I've loved every moment of this season. There's been a lot of dumb stuff. I've said it in pretty much every one of my reviews, so don't get me wrong. If this is like the first one you've seen, believe me, I don't know why they were on that island either. It doesn't make sense. I don't know how they got there, because they had no ships. I don't know why they stayed on that beach, because they got attacked from the water. They got attacked from the air. It made no sense. I don't know why Din somehow fell through the water. He fell like 50,000 leagues under the sea in half a second. There's stuff that doesn't make sense in this season. I 100% agree. There's stuff that they did, it doesn't work. Why did they evacuate the whole city in the last episode and there were like 12 people out there? I don't know. So there's stuff that's wrong, but I still love this season. I still love everything that's happening, because I love what's happening for the Mandalorians. I love the fact that they go to Mandalore, they talk about the history of it, they talk about Bo-Katan's failures, they talk about her successes, they talk about the future of the Mandalorians, the past of the Mandalorians, everything involving them reclaiming the planet and stuff like that. I love it. I'm like, this is all I ever want. My favorite part of everything is just like Mandalorian stuff. Whenever they're fighting for control of the Darksaber, or just going to Mandalore, it's always the best stuff to me. Every single series is like Clone Wars. That's the best stuff. That's like, it's almost inarguably the best part of Clone Wars, not counting like the last 4 episodes. It's almost inarguably the best part of that entire series is Mandalore. And that's just for a lot of stuff. It's not just like, oh, it's Mandalorians, but it's like Darth Maul is there. They fight for the sake of the entire planet. Obi-Wan and Satine is one of the greatest things in all of Star Wars. And it's so beautiful and so tragic. And I love that. So that's just like, that hits on so many levels. And then Rebels is just so good. There's so many different ways around that why it's good as well. But Mandalorians are always my favorite thing. So I love this season, and I feel like, because, especially for most viewers, for sure, there's still the people that are like me that do know all this stuff, but most people don't. Let's be honest. Most people are watching The Mandalorian because to them, The Mandalorian is this dude and the kid that's, in this realm. And that's it. That is The Mandalorian to them. So I totally understand why anyone who is not even into the outside Star Wars stuff, which is most people, let's be honest, even for people that like Star Wars, less of those people watch the animated stuff. So, you got a buttload of people that watch The Mandalorian because it's The Mandalorian, not because it's Star Wars, but it's The Mandalorian. That's most people. It's The Mandalorian and, little baby Grogu, who's of course Baby Yoda, and all the money they got from that and all the popularity because of that. That's The Mandalorian. And then them kind of branching out and it becoming almost like, at this point, it's not an anthology series, but I think we all had that question after season 2, where they're like, oh, Book of Boba Fett. Honestly, thank goodness it wasn't, because if that was still like The Mandalorian, the Book of Boba Fett, it probably would have actually killed the show. So I'm glad that was over there. personally. I'm glad that was a thing. But here we are, and it's definitely like this is that season that feels like the anthology sort of season where it focuses on everyone. It, specifically all the Mandalorians. So I like it because of that. I like what they're doing with Bo-Katan, and I know a lot of people feel like Din has been sidelined. I can see that, but at the same time, he's still the catalyst for everything that's happening. Like, it's still him. Like, he's still the one. He went to Mandalore. He's the reason that Bo-Katan also ended up kind of being a part of his section, or his sect, which I think means section anyway, but being a part of like the group, because she decided to go there to rescue him because he sent Grogu off to do it. Grogu doesn't really do much, which I've heard the rumors where it was like apparently they were kind of forced to bring Grogu back, so that's kind of why some of that stuff happened with the Book of Boba Fett. I don't know, it's been denied and not so much. I don't know. I just recently heard that and I had no idea, but that I can kind of see. That kind of makes sense, because this season would definitely fit better if Grogu wasn't in it, because he only had like one true moment anyway, which is when they battled, or he had like the little battle, and then of course his flashback. So I was like, I could see where it makes sense that he would, it was planned to bring him back. But at the same time, they also were like, yeah, it's been 2 years. I was like, has it really been 2 years? Was he really training with Luke for 2 years? Because that's the thing that makes me think everyone's right when they say like, Kathleen Kennedy kind of forced them to bring Grogu back. When that 2 year thing came up, it's like, that's starting to bring some stuff together. It's like, I don't know. That wasn't 2 years was certainly not conveyed through the Book of Boba Fett. That is for sure. So it does kind of lend some credence to be like, that 2 year time skip came out of absolutely nowhere. And it does kind of make me feel like maybe she did force Grogu back in. I think they did a decent job with him, because his whole thing was always to just be the kid that was there on the side. And this whole season has been focusing, obviously, even with it not focusing as much on Din because he's just a part of the clan again, I think it kind of fits as well with Grogu, the same thing where it's like it doesn't have to focus so much on him because it's just them with their people. It's almost like a slice of life. Honestly, that's kind of what this season has been. It's like a Mandalorian slice of life sort of thing. They're just out there. He's training his son. Kids are getting swooped up. Kids are, people are just getting eaten by crazy sci-fi crocodile alligator things out the water. All sorts of wild stuff has happened this season. And I think, like I said, for me personally, I think they've done a great job. I don't mind that Din isn't the main focus. It's actually one of my favorite things is when shows are capable of having like multiple main characters. Like the greatest example I can think of is the anime Soul Leader. It's like Soul is literally a character in the show. Like that's his name, is Soul Evans. He is not the main character of that show. Like he's kind of like the visual main character technically, but like not really. Like everyone's a main character in that show. It's not like really focused on him. Everyone gets an equal piece of the pie in that anime. And I always loved that show and the manga as well because of that. I've always liked the fact that it was so split up. You could love everybody equally because everyone gets like an equal portion, or at some point everyone has like their insane number one moment. And I feel like they're kind of doing that with this season, just a little bit, but mostly just with Bo-Katan, because it's like she's that important to all Mandalorians. And it wouldn't make much sense to be like, let's do that for Paz Vizsla. He got a son. That's his moment. Right? He got a son. He's good. The Armorer, maybe we'll get some answers. People have said it. She may have been with Darth Maul. She has those little spikes on her head. She could have changed the color and stuff. I think that would be an amazing thing for them to officially reveal. But we'll see. Because people have said that. People have been saying that for a couple seasons now. And I'm like, that would be such a good reveal if they were like, yeah, she was with, one of the people that was with Darth Maul. Excuse me. So I would love to see that be one of the big reveals. But I like what they're doing, honestly. And I know, episode to episode, I can understand, people were not too happy with this. I enjoyed it. I liked it because it was actually Din and Bo fully working together, where it was like they went in for one specific mission. Obviously the ship gets taken over. They go into this room. Jack Black shows up. Lizzo's over. I couldn't tell that was Lizzo, but like as soon as I saw Jack Black, I'm like, that's Jack Black all the way in the background. Like I knew that was Jack Black. So they meet the two of them. Also, I reviewed the Super Mario Brothers movie. Just random thing since we're talking about Jack Black. That's a really good movie. Check out that review if you're interested. But Jack Black is there. Lizzo is there. So they have that reference. It's like, hey, we can't really have our people outside of the city come into the city because they're officially already hired. And I used to be Imperial, all this and all that crap. But you guys are just kind of here. We're open to all cultures and whatnot. Weapons are basically, a part of your culture, which I think is one of the coolest things in the world. Some people from Texas might feel that way as well. I don't know. But they're like, hey, you're here. You could solve this problem because you already have your weapons on you. And so they go into this little spiel where it's like, oh, we don't really want to do that. And then they do something that I thought was very interesting. And this is something I haven't really seen people talk about yet. But going off of the last episode where it was like, hey, you guys now have this, tract of land on Navarro that's like their new home. They in this, in basically, the Mandalorian part of that episode, at least before that little sort of stinger bit, is like, hey, she's going to go out, recruit more people. It's time to retake Mandalore. And they're going through this conversation and it's like, hey, we can talk to the New Republic and be like, Mandalore's cool, and just kind of give you guys like a little boost basically. And it was like, I don't know. And then they talk about the fact that because they knew that she was a princess. So it's like, we heard that you basically wanted to reclaim Mandalore. And she lied straight to their faces. Cause I'm like, they even show it in the recap where it's like, it's time to take back Mandalore. And they use like the exact phrase because I think she says reclaim. And then they're like, oh, we thought that you had like quest to reclaim Mandalore. And she's like, oh, those were abandoned. And I'm like, she straight up lied. Like they literally had it in the recap that's what they're doing. And she was like, we're not doing that. I gave that up. And I thought that was a really interesting thing for her to do, to lie to them, which I think was more just based on the fact that Mandalorians kind of coming together for, one unified thing can probably scare some people. It might, it might do them more good to do that in the shadows versus just being like, yep, all Mandalorians are headed back to Mandalore because they'll get attacked before they get there. Because, depending on who you are, you probably don't want the Mandalorians all teaming up together. So I thought that was interesting, but it was put out there where it was like, hey, we can put in a good word for you basically to really just help you out. And it was just like another little thing kind of going off of the last episode where they got a piece of land and this was meant to help out with, the planet as a whole. So I feel like this episode was far more important than people probably realize, as far as like, obviously the ending was the main thing where it's like, oh, Bo-Katan got the Darksaber back. I feel like I don't know how often we should expect to see, Jack Black and Lizzo show up, but I felt like when she was offering them kind of, a bit of extra amnesty with, the New Republic and like putting in a good word for them, I was like, that's very interesting. Like they basically turned it down, but she was like, the offer still stands or whatever if you guys kind of do it. And I'm like, I think they're going to do that. I felt like that was more of a plot point for the next season where they're still keeping things in the shadows as far as what, they do actually plan on doing with Mandalore. But that's something they could easily go back to and be like, hey, you said you put in a good word for us. Is that still available? And they'll totally be like, yeah, sure. You helped us out. So I think that that's something more for next season, because she straight up lied to their faces when she said that. She was just like, it's been abandoned. We're not doing that anymore. And I was like, that is exactly why you're here. So I thought that was an interesting moment. I hadn't seen anybody talk about that yet in the review. So I wanted to bring that up because I definitely noticed that. I was like, keeping things a little hidden. But also they were offered something extra that was very crucial to them. So I was like, that's just, kind of a little phase 2 instead of just a tract of land on some other planet, putting a good word to kind of keep things smooth when they get back to their home planet as well. So I was like, all right, that's, like I said, down the line sort of thing, but it was definitely thrown in there for a reason. And I thought that was pretty cool. So after all of that, Grogu decides to stay. He wanted to eat some fish. So he of course does the, the super fancy flip. I don't know how many times we're going to see that. It never looks that great to me, but it just looks weird. He's like a tiny little thing and he just, woo, and he just flies over and it's like, okay. So he wanted to eat some fish. He wanted to sit with Lizzo. So that's what they do. They all hang out. And then we have like our 2 detectives go out and solve this crazy crime of, radical robots. They meet Christopher Lloyd. Absolutely amazing. I was so happy. I was like, this is the best episode of my life. I got to see Jack Black. Lizzo's fine. I'm not, I'm not a fan of Lizzo or anything. Well, I'm not against her. I'm just like, she ain't Jack Black. She ain't Christopher Lloyd, So that was super cool to see Christopher Lloyd. They go through the process. It's like, hey, why don't you shut the droids down? It's like, well, if we do that, the whole society would crumble because nobody has to do any work anymore. So that's kind of how things are. It's like, all right, buddy cop time. They have to go through the motions, figure things out. This was the episode where they bring back like Din really hates droids 100%. Like they even referenced it where it was like, you had me at battle droids because those are the things that killed his parents. If you go back to like season 1, it was specifically battle droids. So it was like he was ready to like just wipe out as many droids as he possibly could. He hates them so much. But they go through, and it's like back and forth where it's like he has more personable skills with humans and she's able to kind of keep things calm as far as droids are concerned, or maybe not just humans, but obviously like the Ugnaughts and stuff. So I thought that was really cool the way that they kind of went back and forth where he's kind of calm, and he talks about like the culture of the people, and then being like, insulting their work and stuff is not the good way to go, even though it's not obviously not what she was trying to do. It's just unfortunate. I thought the way they were doing it was hinting at the fact that they were doing it intentionally, and I thought the whole episode was going to change from there, because he was like, yeah, there's no malfunction, and it's like, well, they keep going wrong. He's like, yeah, there's nothing wrong. And I thought they were going to finally understand that him saying that was like, yeah, we do that on purpose. And I thought that was going to change like the whole season. Like there's secretly like an underground thing where the people at the top are actually really bad 100%. And, kind of the classic thing where like they seem super great and nice, but we kind of want to tear this stuff down from the inside. And that wasn't the case, not in the way I thought, at least. So the way that kind of went along was like, oh, I thought they were gonna kind of pivot things and be like, surprise, this is why we're doing this. And it was just like, no, like, hey, we're not saying that this is, it's your fault that it's happening, but let's figure things out. So of course they end up going to the assembly line, and that's where we have Din just being like, I hate droids, I'm gonna just kick them and see what happens. And he was kicking until he wasn't, and that droid stumbled a little and got real pissed and was like, why did you just do that? And he socked him so hard, it was just like boom. And it's a battle droid, it punched him straight in the face, and he went down, but he was good, he was able to get up. And then they have a decent little chase sequence, with him kind of running around. Bo actually has her jetpack on, so when he jumps over the stuff, she actually just does like one leap and like flies over, and I was like, oh, that's cool. I didn't realize he didn't actually have his jetpack on him. So that was cool. Kind of they go through, and he's like, keep following him, and he takes the side alley and runs through the bar, and then he tackles it through the window and stuff, and then Bo gets like the final kill, and it was like, okay, that's cool. Like the team where he slowed it down, she got the final hits in to kill it. I was like, all right, now we have to figure out what's going on next. So they take it. They have like basically the cadaver drawers for droids, which I thought was interesting. I guess she would be the one. I guess it would be an autopsy area. I forgot what like that person is actually called, but they realize that there's something in the droids that is like a drink pretty much, and so that leads them of course to the bar. It's active as it transfers through different droids, because the probe droid actually takes it out, and then that infects that droid pretty much instantaneously, or at least within like a minute or so. I was like, all right, if they even come in contact with it, it's nano droids, and then it rewrites their code from within. And I was like, well, that's a really cool twist on that, where it's droids being controlled by smaller droids. So that of course leads them to the bar. The droids all help out. They figure things out. Things get a little weird, and it's like, Christopher Lloyd is the villain. I personally didn't see that coming. I saw some reviews, other people did. I didn't, but it was also like, dang, he's the villain? I haven't seen that since freaking Who Framed Roger Rabbit. And he was much, much scarier back then. Like, he was just mad in this one, but that laugh really does stick with you. That's a crazy laugh. But it was super cool, and it's like, oh, Christopher Lloyd's the villain. And then he starts busting out old stuff. He was like, I didn't give up to the Empire. I didn't give up to the New Republic. And then Bo-Katan's just like, you're a separatist. And I was like, wow, that's a throwback. Like, they had obviously, the separatist droids and stuff. They talk about that when they go in the bar, where it's like, hey, we just kind of want to help out because it's the least we can do. We got a second chance to even survive here. They have, the classic Roger droids. And this one is like, you aren't going to see that in many other places. Like, the New Republic would just scrap all of us. And that's just how it would be. So they want to help figure out what the problem is with the other droids, because they want to live their lives as well. Like, even though they're working, they're programmed org, so for them, it is what it is. It's not the same as AI, but it's like, hey, we do appreciate the fact that we're actually alive, in a sense. We're still up and running compared to any other place in the galaxy at this point. Especially, I mean, heck, that's a thing even in like Clone Wars stuff, when you see the separatist droids, where it's like, oh, that's old school even for you guys, because like that died out in episode 1. Like, that was it was over. You don't see like the Roger droids like that. So it was pretty cool that they kind of had that reference with all the older droids and stuff like that. But it was certainly cool. Like I said, I enjoyed the episode. I like the whole mystery of them uncovering it and kind of looping back around to Christopher Lloyd, and then he starts dropping bombs like Count Dooku is right. I was like, he has no idea. He was right, and then unfortunately Palpatine was right there, and he manipulated him, and he just made him a bad guy. And I was like, so close. It was, especially if you watch Tales of the Jedi, which I highly recommend. Once again, animated, gotta watch it. It's really good. God, the way they did that, when you see the official story of exactly how it turned, how everything turned for Count Dooku, it is so good. It is incredibly well done. So him being like, Count Dooku is right, and just, it's funny, like the stuff that happens with Count Dooku, where it was like he wanted to do good for real, and it just didn't work out for him. And it was too late. By the time you get to Clone Wars, and that's like, technically our first introduction to him, or Attack of the Clones, I mean, he does the thing that Vader does in Empire Strikes Back, where he's talking to Obi-Wan like, hey, there's some bad stuff going on, but we can work together. We can actually do good. But of course, because he'd already turned to the dark side, it was like, nah, you lying. It was they do that 3 times, because that's what happened with Darth Maul. It was like, nah, you lying. And then sometimes, every once in a while, there's a Sith out there that's just like, I know I'm bad, but like, this shit crazy over here, so help. And that's how it goes. And it never works. That's just how it is. But I love that we got that reference where it's like he was a separatist and he was like, Count Dooku is right. And I'm like, dang, that like he dropped Count Dooku's name. That's not, they're past Return of the Jedi. And this dude is talking about Count Dooku. That's a wild reference. So, you know, it was just really interesting. I definitely loved it for that. And once again, that leads to like the whole separatist droid thing, where it's like they're so, you know, past Return of the Jedi and they're still keeping those droids up and running. It makes sense that the other droids would be like, hey, we want this figured out because we don't want to get decommissioned. Like, they wouldn't obviously say this, but it's past Return of the Jedi. Like, nobody cares about us in the galaxy. So I liked everything they did with it. I like the sort of, you know, the buddy cop investigation that they have to go through in the city. And then of course we get to the end, everything's cool. For whatever reason, Grogu just randomly gets knighted, which I was like, dang, can I just get knighted? I'd love to be knighted for no good reason. But it's like, boom, he's knighted. That's yet another random thing that they could bring in the next season and be like, hey, our knight/ambassador would like to make a request. If you could put in a good word for us with the New Republic, help us out a little. So it's just like another tiny little addition where they could be like, just gonna, you know, use the baby and be like, hey, remember the baby? We need help. So it's an easy way to, I do it in real life. I use my kids all the time. It's genius. It's the best thing you can do. So look how cute this baby is. I need help. It works. Trust me, it works. But I like the episode. And then of course we get, you know, the resolution of all of that as far as the investigation and everything. And then they're finally able to do what they were trying to do in the very beginning. This was a full on video game mode where it was like, we need to do this. Oh, you're diverted over here. And then when you do this, you have to go to level 2. All right, talk to this guy. We go down to level 3 and then we go back up. And it was very video game. It was definitely a mission from a video game. And then you finally do that and you get back to the main mission at the end. We have Axe Woves. He ends up dealing with a battle with Bo-Katan, and that was definitely cool with them flying around and charging at each other. The part where they land on the wing and then he like kicks her off and then she zip lines him to kind of slow her own descent down and drags him off and uses her jetpack to slow herself down. All of that was super cool. They battle, they do everything. She beats him. And then he says something that's totally valid. It was like, he's the one you should be challenging because he's the ruler of Mandalore. And then, so like I said, I love this season, but there's stuff that does happen where it's like, okay, why'd you do it like that? Because Din was just like, here you go. It's like, I can't take it. It's like, it's not a gift. And then it's like, check this out. Rewind a little bit. Back in episode 2, this thing happened. I lost. She beat the thing that beat me. Boom, it's hers, right? And everybody standing around is like, yeah, it's hers. Of course, the question is, why didn't he bring that up earlier? Of course, they could have just thrown in a single line. Like, I even thought about it. When I was in the car, I was like, they could have thrown in 2 lines that 100% would have been valid, especially for this season. If she asked him, why did you wait until now to basically bring that up? Because obviously she didn't think about it. She just gave it back to him. And then all he would have had to have said was, I thought you would have left if I gave it to you, you know, as soon as we basically left Mandalore. Like, I didn't think you would have stuck around if I gave you the Darksaber. And that would have been totally valid. And she could have just been like, I probably wouldn't have. Because she didn't really want to be a part of the group or anything like that. And everybody's been questioning, you know, from the very beginning, like, is she going to like betray them, or how is this going to play out with her joining, you know, I'm just going to call it the cult, you know, joining that cult. How is all that going to play out? Easily could have thrown like those 2 lines in there and it would have made perfect sense if he was just like, I felt like you would have left. Or he could have even straight up said like, you probably would have left and I felt like we need, you know, just say something. Like, you don't even have to add to it. It really could have just been, I figured you wouldn't have stuck around. And she could have just been like, you're probably right. Because that's it. She didn't like the mode that the state of mind that she was in, it would have made perfect sense for him to specifically say, I didn't think you would stay. And that's it. Because he has no ill will towards her. Like, his whole thing, like, obviously when he first got it in season 2 was like, all right, here you go. Like, he does not want to lead. He did not want the Darksaber. He was like, I'm not trying to do any of that. There's a reason that I'm a part of the group, but I also go like way over there and do bounty hunting and just leave all the time. I'm with them, but I kind of do my own thing. And so that's kind of, that's changed around with this season, and he's with his people more. So I wish that they just threw that in there, because it totally fits. It was definitely like a loophole that he found that made logical sense, but they could have thrown the line in. Like I said, it could have been 2 lines. Why didn't you bring that up before? I thought you would have left. Like, all the stuff that they've done together, it totally would have been a line that would have made sense, and they could have easily just snuck that in there. I thought you would have left if I gave it to you. It makes sense that he'd want her around. It makes sense that he'd want things to, be simpler between their people, where it's like, he doesn't want that battle. She doesn't want that battle. Like, none of them really want that. They all want the Mandalorians to come together. That's always kind of been his thing, where it's like, he's known as, well, since Book of Boba Fett, which is still a weird decision, but since then it was kind of like, look, he wants to be a part of his people. He cares about Mandalorians. He respected Bo's father when she was like, he died sacrificing himself to save Mandalore, and he stopped and like gave that man his honor. Like, this is the way. Like, like, he cares about all Mandalorians. It totally would have fit. Where it was just like, I thought you would have left. Like, as the princess is like, hey, don't just take off. Let's figure things out. 2 lines, and it totally would have worked. I'm sure people probably still would have questioned a couple things, but I'm like, I feel like it would have been better than not questioning it. They might do it in the next episode. Kind of like when he fell in the water, where it was like, man, I didn't think that water was so deep. And that brought up a million other questions, because it still didn't make sense how he fell so far down and so far away in like 2.5 seconds. She jumped right in after him. It didn't make sense. But they should have thrown that in there. Why didn't you do it? I thought you would have left. Super fast, super easy. But they didn't do that. They just did the loophole. She has it. I still love the sequence. I almost pissed myself when she ignited the darksaber, and I was like, oh, they did the wide shot. She got the darksaber. She will lead all the Mandalorians. They shall reclaim Mandalore in due time, of course. But those 2 lines could have done it. That's all they would have had to have done. Why didn't you do that before? Thought you would have took off. That's it. It feels like it's only been like 2 or 3 days. I'm sure it's been multiple days, but as far as the show is concerned, it feels like they've only spent like 3 days on that planet. I'm sure it's been a long time. It's probably been like a week or 2, maybe. But considering how the episodes play out, like, it kind of feels like they've only been there for 3 days anyway. So, it probably still would have fit timeline wise. It's just, I don't know how long it's really been. If that was only 3 or 4 days ago, well, that works. They did a lot in the last couple episodes as a team. And it would have made sense if it was like only, 2 or 3 days worth of time. They ended up doing all that crazy stuff. So it probably still would have fit. It could have been like within the same week, and then all the stuff they went through. And then it's like, all right, now I realize you want to stick around. We want the same thing. You understand how we want the same thing. My people aren't crazy. I know your people aren't crazy. Let's figure this out. So I feel like 2 lines would have really made a world of difference there. As far as like, questioning that loophole and everything, which they could still easily do. And I feel like if anyone's going to do it, they have the opportunity in these next 2 episodes for Paz Vizsla, because he's the one guy 100% I believe would be like, what happened and how did she get the darksaber? 100% it's going to be Paz Vizsla, because he's the one dude who's 100% like, this thing has to be followed strictly. Like, him in the armor, of course, she can kind of switch up rules a little bit because she's in a higher station or position, but he's the guy who's like, these are our people, these are our rules, this is what we do. He has to question it. At least it has to be like, so you beat him in battle, and it's like, well, technically this thing happened. He might even do what a lot of people think, where it's like the loophole thing shouldn't count, because I know some people feel that way. He might be the one to bring it up and be like, I don't think that works. And then it's like, well, where do we go from here? Because she already got it. Are you going to challenge her? If he does, I honestly think he would get beat again, but who knows? He'd be the one to bring it up though. So maybe they'll do it in the next episode and have someone question it. It would be him. He'd be the most logical person to have ask, so you did it through a loophole. That's not really battle. It's not the same thing, but that loophole is the thing. He beat the person and beat the person. It totally works. They just didn't talk about it, but they do. They got to bring up at least a question as to why he didn't reference it really early on. And I feel they could have done it there. Like I said, those 2 lines. Why didn't you? You would have left. Super fast, but still loved it. All in all, I still enjoy everything about this season. I like where we're headed as far as the last 2 episodes. I think it'll be interesting to see. I think that they are going to do Moff Gideon, I would assume, in these final 2, and just kind of reestablish the threat that he's going to be in season 4. I think that's how it's really going to play out. I mean, it's only 2 episodes. I don't know, unless these episodes are crazy long. I don't see how he could come back, be an ultra threat, and then they defeat him and it still feels satisfying. Like there's no way, like he's going to come back and be a renewed threat, maybe with Mandalorians. We'll see if they actually end up doing that. They kind of tease it with them being guns for hire in the beginning, but seemingly they have nothing to do with him at all. So we'll see what ends up happening. But 2 more episodes to go. I'm loving the season. I can see where other people are coming from though. I feel like they've done a decent job building up enough. Personally, that's just how I feel. Because I just like, even though it's a lot of little stuff, I actually like all the little stuff. I think all the little things they do are entertaining, like seeing more of the people, the stuff with the campfire, all that stuff, like having all these questions about their race and stuff. I like it. And I like the fact that there's so much action in it where I'm like, okay, give me like some little action. I like the little, it's almost like the slower chapters of a book, but it's done in TV form, so I can understand why people don't like it as much. I liken it repeatedly in my head to Castlevania season 3, and I talked about that a lot in my last review, so I won't go over that again just in case anyone's seeing this twice. But it's the same sort of thing. It's the rebuild season going into season 4. Fortunately for me though, I'm absolutely loving this because I love everything Mandalorian based, so I'm having a great time with it. We got 2 more episodes. We're getting our cameos. We're getting Ahsoka. We're getting, I assume, Gideon, which is much of a cameo. He's just a character. But Ahsoka, I don't know. Maybe somebody else. I don't know if they'll show Sabine. That would be really cool. I think they cast Sabine, and they also have Ezra cast as well. If it's still the dude who is live action Aladdin, which I find to be the craziest turn of events, because everyone said Ezra looked like Aladdin when Rebels first came out, and now the dude who played live action Aladdin is going to be playing Ezra. So it's really weird thing that ended up playing out the way it did. If that's still official and he is still the actor for that, it was just like, weird how that turned out. But I'm excited for these last 2 episodes. I hope they're long episodes too. This was a good length for the episode as well, but definitely it would be super cool if they hit us with some major surprises. I highly doubt it, but man, if they were just like, surprise, 1.5 hour long episode, and then finale, 1.5 hour long episode. It won't be that way. I'm not even gonna get your hopes up. It won't be that way. But man, if it was, that would be sick. I feel like they should do that every once in a while. They should just hit us with like a super crazy long episode, like surprise, it's basically a full-on movie. So we'll see what happens in these next 2 episodes. I'm having a great time with this season. I wish everyone was loving it as much as I am, but for the most part, things are really the opposite because everyone feels like it's kind of just middling. Nothing's really happening. I feel like all the buildup for Mandalorians is the point of the season. I feel like that's the whole point of this season, is to be the build-up season. And things are actually happening, piece by piece. So it's not every single thing is just, oh, that'll be solved, in the next season. Like them getting the plot of land and stuff, like that was a callback just from the, premiere. So I think they did a good job with some of the stuff already, kind of bringing things back. Obviously, this season definitely showed the flashback for Grogu, so that was an important segment. Still, once again, a million questions there because they showed them leave Coruscant, and then it was like, boom, that's it. And there's a lot of time in between then and now. So it was like, well, they went to Naboo, but what happened next? Did they meet Ahsoka there? Because she was there. That was an interesting thing. So there's still a bunch of things up in the air. We'll see what ends up happening. But I'm very fortunate to be loving this season, considering how upset a lot of people are with the way things have gone. So I'm really happy that I'm loving it as much as I am, because it is my favorite season. I feel like the last 2 seasons, if it wasn't something going on, it really was like, this is totally an irrelevant episode. Like there's not even a connection to anything coming up. It's just a bottle episode. Even the bottle episodes in this end up doing stuff. Like the pirate episode was a bottle episode. This was a bottle episode pretty much until the end, but they have like new allies on this planet because of everything they did. So every little bottle episode still has a lot of weight carried with it going forward, through the rest of the series. So I'm happy with that. I can understand why other people aren't, but I'm glad I'm enjoying it. So I'm looking forward to these last 2 episodes. We'll love to know what you guys thought about this one. And of course, with the last 2 episodes where we're headed, what would they have to do admittedly, it feels like it's most people because, it's the internet. You always see the negative more than the positive. But if you're in the camp of you were just tired of this season, what would they have to do somehow in 2 episodes? What could they do in order to save it for you? I would love to know your thoughts on that. Because it would just be interesting to see, like, what could they do at this point to save it from people that just feel like, it's just not happening. 2 episodes left. Like I said, if they're both 1.5 hours long, I think it's guaranteed they could easily save it. 3 straight hours, they could do it. I wouldn't expect that. I wouldn't hope for that. But I would love to know your thoughts on what they need to do. If you feel like they've lost you, what would they have to do in 2 episodes to really get you back? I think next one's going to be good, because I don't think I think Ahsoka's supposed to be in the next episode, and I don't think they would save her for the finale anyway, because that it's more for like the crossover stuff to lead into, and I feel like that would be weird to do that for the finale. I feel like the finale has to be like, I don't think Ahsoka, unless she's in both episodes, I don't think Ahsoka would even be in the finale. It would be like, we do our crossover reference stuff, here's the future, this and that, and then it's like the finale has to 100% just be, here's the Mandalorian stuff, Din, Bo-Katan, Armor, Paz Vizsla, whatever the F is going to happen with Moff Gideon, it has to just be them for, you know, the finale, unless they at the very least just focus on Ahsoka joining them for a specific mission or something. But I don't think they'll touch on crossover stuff unless it's like a post-credit scene in the finale. I think the finale has to just be, here's the story ending for this specific season, if that's even super relevant, because a lot of the episodes have just been, here's, you know, bits and pieces and stuff like that. So we'll see what happens. Like I said, want to know your thoughts on this episode, but definitely want to know, if they've lost you, how can they get you back, if even possible? So please put your comments down in the comment section below. And of course, thanks for watching.